Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome if you are new. It's so happy to have you here. See, we were just talking about that, weren't we? Happy
Sure.
to have you here on the Helping People Heal channel. If you are new, would love to have you as a subscriber. So if you will hit that subscribe button and ring the bell and do all the things, you will be notified when new videos go up. And lately, I've had more going up recently than have been before, so you kind of want to be in the know on that. But today I have a wonderful guest. I'm super excited about this because, as you guys know, most of my coaching practice and my business revolves around women, which makes a whole lot of sense since I am one. But one of the areas that I have been asked about and just don't really have a whole lot of experience in is men's health. And so I wanted to talk to the men out there who are following this channel, and especially in my email group, because I know some of you are going to be watching this. And we're going to talk about men's health today. And so I have a guest with me because guess what? That is not my area of specialty. So it just makes sense that I would have someone come in and talk about some men's health issues. So Dr. Jeff Hatala, it is so nice to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. So let's just jump right in because I know that we have a lot of great stuff to talk about. So first of all, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you work, what you're doing, and then we'll go from there. How does that sound?
You bet. You bet. So I'm Jeff Hatala. I'm an assistant professor and program director for the health sciences degree. And I run the program at the RELLIS campus in Bryan, Texas. So my research has predominantly been in the space of obesity and obesity prevention, not on the delivery level, but looking at a systematic level. So I've been involved with looking at why local health departments participate in obesity prevention efforts versus why they don't, like what infrastructure elements need to be in place. I looked at that same data and compared southern and non-southern states because there's a marked difference in BMI between those two parts of the country. And that led me down to look at some things in Texas. And so I've been looking at obesity prevention efforts done in Texas between 2012 and 2017 to look at explore where these are done and who's receiving these services and are these programs something that can be sustainable. So right now with that study, I'm looking at sustainability. So those programs that I looked at originally ended in 2017. Do any of those programs still exist? And what's made them exist today is looking at this. I'm sorry.
I know. I was agreeing with you because sustainability is a huge issue. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And so looking at the interventions that were being done, I noticed that social support was a key element of many of them, depending on how they were structured. And so I really reflected on that as in my own journey to health with nutrition and physical exercise in a battle that seems to be, and I don't seem to be any different from the rest of the population in that area. What does that really look like? And what does that social support consist of? And then that made me really think about, well, on a bigger level, what does that really mean? I mean, that social support is that a workout buddy, or is that someone who's going to say, hey, put that cake down? Or
no.
Right. Like, and it's Halloween. So like there's candy abound.
Well, and I think we're both agreed that chocolate is a food group like that needs to be consumed.
Absolutely.
And dark chocolate is heart healthy, so I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So and different chocolates have varying levels of health too, and it's important to know where that is for your own specific needs.
Yes. And white chocolate is not chocolate, just so you guys know. I know this is debatable across the country, but I'm here to tell you as a health educator, white chocolate is not chocolate. So we move on.
No, it's like frosting, essentially.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
And
we should have done this episode on chocolate. I mean, who would watch that? I think everybody would watch
part two, part
part
two,
two.
we'll get there.
That's right.
Okay.
So
And
you got involved in this work basically just because you had started studying this out of your own interest, probably an interest in your own health, right?
yeah, yeah. So I was not healthy or fit, I would say. I mean, I wasn't sick, but I wasn't healthy. I certainly wasn't fit as a child. I come from a food focused family where family get-togethers involved many cover dishes where we would sit around and identify what was in the dish. Like
Really?
it was like a game. Like, ooh, did you put nutmeg in this? Or is there? I sense a bit of cinnamon. Like, and it didn't matter if it was like cookies, pastries, if it was like a new casserole, like a new kind of like flavoring for potato. I mean, it was all over the place, and that was just a thing. Like we just ate a lot. We got together a lot, so we ate a lot, um and so I was a bit on the heavy side, let's say, through through high school. And and then I lost the weight. And then over time I slowly gained it back again. And then I decided in my mid-30s that I needed to be like I needed to get in shape, like it was time. Like it was just time. And I did. Like I got down to 15% body fat.
Wow.
I was hot. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Were you?
Yeah, I was in like in
Were
that
you ripped?
almost. I was so close, so close. And then and then I got married, and then that kind of went away. And then so that's the issue. And so I started trying to get back into shape again after my third child because I gained sympathy weight with these pregnancies.
Mm.
And I was badly out of shape. My wife said to me, I remember I was sitting on the couch a month after my daughter was born. And it was just one of those moments where it was really quiet in the house. And just kind of just sitting there. It was just this moment of peace. And I wasn't sleeping, but I had my eyes closed. And I wasn't meditating, but it was just this very, like I was just in this zone that was just very
Yeah. You were
nice.
zoned out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was zoned out.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what it was. And I heard my wife's voice say to me, "Go join a gym. Do it today. Go now. Don't come back till you join a gym." Okay, and there was love in there. I heard it later,
Right.
but
Right. Not in the
yeah,
moment.
yeah. So I did that, and then I went, and I liked. I mean, I like being in gym. Like I don't have, I'm not gym averse. Like I don't have a phobia about that anymore. I did for a long time, but I'm over that, and it was fine. But then I couldn't find consistency, and then I started
Mm.
feeling guilty because I wasn't spending enough time with at home. And then I thought, well, I'll go. I need to go early before everybody's awake, and then that was like ridiculously early because like kids wake up early, like little kids, like
Yeah.
they do that. Um, and then that model needs to change because I heard, so when I had kids, I was told, well, babies sleep like 20 hours a day, which, yeah, they do, but not consecutively.
Right.
Like
Right.
they're
There's
up like all
feeding
the
and,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and
they,
consistency, just to interrupt you for just a second, consistency, I think we could park on that for a long time because I think a lot of people would say to you, I get it. It is hard for me to find, the consistent time to do something. And, you and I talked a couple weeks ago as we were getting ready for this, and I had mentioned, the 7 F's of ULA that, I coach on. And the number one F in ULA is fitness. And the number one dream that people put on our ULA bus has to do with their fitness goals and the second one is finance, by the way, but they want to be healthy and they want to have money, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, money is your friend, right? It doesn't buy happiness, but it dang sure buys some choices. But also if you're healthy, if you don't have your health, you've got nothing. So, I think it's not just men. I think everybody, men and women, really have some some problems finding consistency. So I think you're probably talking to a majority of the population right now. So
Yeah.
if you're listening and you're like, hey, I'm right there with you. Yeah, that's because it's just kind of a thing with humanity, right? That's just kind of one of the
Right.
things we share. Would
Yeah,
you agree with that?
absolutely. Absolutely. The whole idea of balance
Mm,
is a challenge for everyone,
mm-hmm.
regardless of your socioeconomic status, regardless of your gender, regardless of your age, regardless of anything going on in your life, unless you are living in a cave with a really
Right.
good internet connection,
Or under a
you,
rock.
right? Like you, yeah, I mean, even if you're living off the land, if you're off the grid and living off the land, like you still have to like do these things, like because you may not have that same kind of intellectual stimulation, you may not have that emotional
Right.
connection, you may not have all those things. And so being able to have that, um, and I think today is even harder because there's more things that are pulling at our time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these things are absolutely phenomenal and fantastic, and I can't believe we have lived without these things for so long. And at the same time, there's opposition in all things, right? And
Yeah.
so there's a plentiful amount of things that we really can do without. And
Yeah.
sorting out those things is not an easy task.
No, it's not, especially when you feel like everything's on fire. And you really have to, you really, I think we live in a time where you really have to pick and choose what's important. But I want to get down to this nitty-gritty of this men's health because I'm passionate about women's health, because there are so many misnomers about what actually kills women, what our mortality rate is, and based on what. And again, you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. Women are killed mostly. Our mortality is centered around heart disease. It's not breast cancer. It's
Mhm.
heart disease. And the number one cause of that is prolonged stress, which is why I have published the courses I have published on my website and in my classroom, because I'm really passionate about making sure that women understand that that's what they're up against, right? And it's more of a silent killer than anything. So talk to me about men's health. Talk to me about the things that men really deal with that women may not know about, that men themselves may not know about, because the old joke is, men never go to the doctor, which is not true, maybe a little, but
So,
but it's hard to get guys to the doctor, right? So talk to
right,
me about some men's
absolutely.
health issues. Talk to me about some statistics. What are men facing today? And then we'll talk about what we can do about it. So let's talk about,
Okay.
what are they facing right now?
So, uh, the thing that, as I was looking for statistics to share with you today, I read the 2030 Healthy People
Mm-hmm.
report, which for your viewers, if they don't know, this is a report that a number of government and other entities put together every 10 years that looks at the health and sets goals for that coming year. And so, a lot of the different populations of concern are looking at, like you were saying, like for women, heart health, that they're looking at health disparities
Yes.
and why are certain groups not doing as well as other groups and that sort of thing. And so I looked at the section for men, and let me read to you what those goals are for this year.
They're
Okay.
pretty lofty from what I've seen.
So I have to put on glasses on for this part. Okay. So there are four goals. One is reduce prostate cancer death rate
Mm-hmm.
for men. Increase proportion of adolescent males who used a condom the last time they had sex.
Mm-hmm.
Um, reduce the syphilis rate in men. Specifically, this is for men who have sex with men, and to reduce the gonorrhea rate in male adolescents and young men. And that's it.
So what's missing?
Well,
A bunch of stuff
everything.
as far as,
So yeah. So it's like, wait, all these things are sexual related.
right.
And I'm not gonna put, words or ideas into the mouth of those that put this, but the perception that gives me as a man and as a researcher is, why are we equating men and sex only?
Right.
Like men and sex are not like, it's not all that make up men.
Yes, and to the first point about the prostate dust, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I am a health educator. I do happen to know men
Mhm.
don't typically die of prostate cancer itself unless it's just running rampant and there's
Yeah,
there,
it's slow.
typically they don't die of prostate cancer. So I'm wondering about that particular goal and who had so many questions that
Yeah.
probably neither of us
So
can answer.
yeah,
But this
and that,
just points to the fact that maybe men's health is misunderstood.
um, yeah, I think it is. I think men's health is not understood, and I think um men and men's issues are not understood.
Mm-hmm. So
And
let's
so,
clarify some of this in the next few minutes.
okay, I will do my
Let's
will do my best to try here.
let's
And
clarify.
so and so like it so that those goals made me see like a very one-dimensional view
Yes.
of men. And I can understand based on some things in the media that, and I'm not putting blame on anything anywhere, but there's a lot um in the media today about um um toxic masculinity
Mm-hmm.
and men who behave badly
Mm-hmm.
and do um understatement, very unkind things to women and children. And now those numbers don't represent the entire 49% of the population that's men, right? And so I think there's some misconceptions there. At the same time, I don't know that men know in today's society who they are and what the role is.
Mm-hmm.
And so by that, I'm talking about historically that men's roles, not easy, but had very few roles. Like they were the hunter,
Mm-hmm.
they were the protector,
Mm-hmm.
and
Provider.
yeah, provider of food, what they
Mm-hmm.
hunted, that sort of thing too. And so, but in those days, um, and I'm saying this was like 20 years ago, but like a long time ago, like that was the role. Like you were just built to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were the strongest, if you were the fastest, if you were the best killer, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you had friends that were like kind of in your tribe, in your group, if you will, you work together to battle these other enemies that might be taking your food.
Mm-hmm.
And then things started to get a little bit different, where people were like traveling from place to place with their families and settling and killing and eating and then going and those sorts of things. And then somebody said, well, why are we doing that? Like, why don't we just stay? Like, we've got our stuff here, let's just do that. So we started getting like farms and little communities and those sorts of things. So being able to kind of communicate and take charge and like direct the others became these um, distinctively male traits.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, those things have shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally so. I mean, I think I personally would rather not be a hunter like every like the dinosaurs, like having to go
Right.
out and like, okay, what I kill today is what I'm eating today.
It's
Like
like
living
play
day to
all day,
day.
right?
Right, right. Yeah. That does not sound like a quality lifestyle to me.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
so and I think over just centuries of this, like that is somehow programmed into us to a point, right? And I think though this is going to sound horrible, but we have to figure out a way to get past that. We need to be able to embrace um like what it means for men to be men. So men don't want to be women, right? And women don't necessarily want to be men, right? Like we need to have like our own identity. Everybody must have their own identity. And within um your group, like there needs to be like this commonality. And some of it's positive and some of it's negative. And I'm sure
Mhm.
that's the way with women too. You know,
Yeah,
like
this whole topic is so interesting to me because I have mentioned to my dad before as we were talking about some different things about sociology and things, and how over time, if you look at like people in the 60s, for example, 50s and 60s, right, that whole vibe that they had, like just it was just, I don't know, classy, and there was just something different about it. But if you look at how people in general have evolved over time, the physical look of people has actually changed. And I think that is a direct result of our environment, for one thing. And the fact that we are in this post-industrial age where everything is technology based. We're not outside nearly as much as we used to be. We're not as active as we used to be. Although I think the pandemic kind of changed that a little bit, because where could we go other than outside to get some relief from being stuck in these four walls, right? So we went outside, and to me, it looks like that activity level, that increased activity level, has stuck with us. I live right across from a green space with a pond over here where I live, and I have noticed that there are people out all the time. And used to, it would be hard pressed for you to go to Trinity Trails here and find anybody out walking. But since 2020, I'm telling you the level. And so it's just increased, and it's exciting to me because for men in particular, if you're dealing with obesity, for example, the whole, listen, we could talk about the dad bod joke, right? I mean, that has had a surgence in the last decade about what that's all about, and what, from a sociological standpoint, that says. I don't think it's very positive, to be quite honest with you. But these things are happening. And so with the increase in activity since the pandemic, I think that we probably have people who want to hear what people like you have to say about men's health and how that needs to change. Talk to me a little bit about that, because we had a conversation about social media before this, and the fact that I'm starting to see, and you maybe too, depending on whether or not my viewers are sports fanatics or not, but I'm beginning to see more commercials about men's health on TV, about really sensitive topics, actually, that kind of make me do a double take, even as a health educator. But I think that's a good thing. I think the point is they're trying to get the attention of men to talk to them about these certain issues. So has that hurt or helped, in your opinion, in terms of getting men to wake up and go, you know what, maybe I need to take better care of myself?
Um, I would hope so. I mean, I would love to do a study on that. I haven't seen a study done on that specifically. A lot of those studies seem to be focused, those type of lifestyle studies, at least what I see, but I work for a university, so I tend to see more about college student health and
Mm-hmm.
those sorts of things too. I think that it can help. I don't know if it is. I think that there may be, from the things that I'm seeing, there may be that it's creating awareness of the disease or condition. But at the same time, it's kind of influencing people to push to their doctor's head, when I tried this med because I saw it on TV.
Yeah.
And so that kind of concerns me,
Yeah.
in that I mean, I think people should absolutely have a say in their healthcare decision making. Absolutely. And there is more of that today than there was even 10 years ago. But doctors are now evaluated on patient satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
in the last 10 years. And
Yeah.
so um I think doctors may be more willing to go down that route, even though their medical knowledge may not say that that's the best
Right. I think
choice.
the worst thing that's happened to us as a society is just the drug companies being able to just freely advertise. I do believe it has taken some authority away from physicians to say, you know what, I think we should try something else. And not to say that we shouldn't have patient satisfaction surveys and things like I'm all for that. But I also think that doctors need to be able to use the education that they spent so much money on and be able to care for their patients individually. As that, I also believe in doctor-patient partnerships, right? So there is some sweet spot right here in the middle that we're dancing around, and there's some point right there where all of this can come together, and I think be very positive for people, men in particular, especially since they typically don't go to the doctor a whole lot. You want to get the most bang for your buck when you do get them there, right?
Well, and so there's that issue that they don't go to see a provider as often as they maybe should. Or we're socialized. I guess I should include me in that mix. Like we're socialized to buck up. Like it's just a little pain. So my toe hurts.
Yeah.
I can still walk. I can still, climb a telephone pole and, or power line and like do that sort of stuff. I can still roof my house. Like it's just a little pain. And so I think the little pain, if it's a couple days, like that's one thing. But if it's something like, oh, that started like before COVID. So, I mean, dude, like go get that checked out. Like, it's fine. And so I think there's that whole buck up, rugged individualism, be stoic. Be you will get, I think the phrase I heard on from Chris Williamson was men believe they get strength through suppression. And so that idea is like no, like the more I can suck in and absorb and take is going to make me stronger. Where I think in some things, yeah, that can work. For many things, including like pain, chest pain, emotional pain, like that's no bueno. Like that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. So let's go down that rabbit hole just for a minute because it brings to mind, I was watching the Chiefs Broncos game on Sunday, football game. And the big deal at the beginning of the game was that Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback for the Chiefs, had been out sick most of the week with the flu. He had been really sick on Saturday night, and yet he was playing on Sunday. Now, as a woman, okay, I'm telling you right now, I'm seeing this as a woman. As a woman, I'm thinking that is insane. You were putting a sick player out on the field, and there are so many ramifications to that. But what you're saying is quite interesting in that is that part of that suck it up culture. Now, don't get me wrong. Listen, all of those NFL players have access to the best doctors in the world, and it's all taken care of for them. I get it. But just from a human standpoint, I felt like that was just wrong for them to, and I don't know if it was his decision. I don't know if it was the coach's decision, but to me, the coaching staff should have said, the head coach should have said, you're sick. Let's take care of you first. So that kind of, I know that's sports culture. I understand that, but let's bring it down to a human male perspective. Right. Is that part of what you're talking about? And that man, just suck it up and get out there and earn your paycheck. I mean,
because as a man, I look at that. I could look as a professor. I look at that and I go, yeah, Melissa's right. Like seriously, like don't bring your germs to the other team.
Yeah.
Right. Because like this is going to spread and everybody's going to get sick.
Yeah.
And this is a good thing. As from a purely male perspective, like the initial response is he can power through. He's a man. He can really like, if he can do this, I can do this. Like this is a sign of power. This is a sign of strength. This is a sign of determination. This is I'm not going to let this beat me.
Mm-hmm.
Competitive side of men, whether it's men versus nature, men versus men versus disease, I'm going to win.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, again, I'm talking from a woman's perspective because that's all I have.
Mhm.
But to me, it seems like there's something very wrong with that, and that we are doing men a disservice by not allowing them to be sick, not allowing them to be able to recover from things like that. And again, I'm not a sports psychologist. I'm not in the NFL business, nor do I want to be. So I do understand at some level that is a money issue.
Yeah.
That's a business
Mhm.
issue. But even let's just bring it back to our own workplaces. We do not have policies in this country about sick leave, good policies. We don't have good, I mean, FMLA is okay. But in European countries, some dads get to take, I don't know, 6 months off when their wife has a baby. So
Mhm.
I just think overall, from a policy perspective, we can do better in this country.
Yeah.
And I think that when you ask people to come to work sick, and by the way, if you don't, you're not going to get paid. And I know we're going down a different rabbit hole. I'm just saying, in the greater scheme of
Yeah.
things, for men as the hunter-gatherers in particular, or really if you're a single woman and you're the hunter-gatherer, all of that stuff,
Right.
that's a very difficult position to be in. And it's
Yes.
a position that I don't think this country has done a very good job of exploring
Yeah.
in terms of policy, because we all live by policy. I mean,
Right.
if it's not on
Right.
books, then it ain't
Yeah.
happening, right?
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think we're there's been discussions that move things in a better direction in terms of those policies. To close out the football piece, I wonder if it was the coach that made a decision, hey, you're going to play, or if Patrick decided, I'm playing.
Yeah,
I'm playing.
and I
Right.
honestly can't say that I know the answer to that
Right.
question.
We don't know that. So
Yeah, to be
so
fair.
that conversation becomes um an interesting look at like what the driver is.
Like agency, right? Like,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
got the agency here,
Yeah. Who like, well, yeah, who's got, I mean, and not political power or revenue power, but in terms of your character and your drive to compete, to do your job, to do the thing that you love so much,
Yeah,
versus maybe something that's not necessarily the greater good for the team.
right. Right.
Right. And I think we saw that during COVID. We saw that thing all over the place.
And that gets to be real sticky. That gets
It
to be a real
does.
sticky situation.
It,
So
it does.
absolutely.
It does.
So in our last few minutes, let's talk about what do you have any tips for men? Let's just say you're a man out there, you're watching, you really do want to get healthy, whatever that means to you. Everybody's goals
Mhm.
are different. And again, in ULA coaching, we talk about all of that. That's for us, that's a conversation for another time. But in terms of just getting started, let's just say men are at ground zero. I don't know what to do. I know I need to get in shape, but where do you start? What tips do you have just to get people? Because once you get momentum, you're good typically, and especially if you have that
Yeah.
social support. So I
Yeah.
would assume that would
Well,
be one tip. But what
well,
are some tips that you have?
that would be my first, but let's save that one for last.
Okay.
Um, that I think that if you have not ever exercised before, or you are doing something like you did something in your youth that may be more difficult to do, whether it's through cost, whether that's through, yeah, my body doesn't do that anymore. Like I'm not going to skateboard, right? I'm not cliff diving. I'm not doing these kind of risky behaviors anymore because I've got a
Right.
family to feed, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But just find something that you like. Just find something that you like to do, whether that's if you like walking, if you like uh biking, if
Mhm.
you like being in a gym, if you like lifting weights, if you like even exercise classes, whether you do this outside or inside. I mean, I think outside has more potential health benefit to it, but the
Absolutely.
weather does, yeah, but the weather doesn't always cooperate with you.
Absolutely. As
Right.
this we're seeing today.
Right. 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 And so but just find something that you like. And, um, you know, I think the other thing is that to be kind to yourself. I think
Mhm.
once we're like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm ready to go. Like, this is it. I'm all in. Like, especially I think for men, like we go in full throttle, just all in.
Mhm.
And because we're gonna kill it. We're
Mhm.
going in there, we're gonna crush it. We're losing this weight, we're gonna six pack by the weekend. It's gonna be fantastic. And that's just not I mean, I applied that goal and I would have actually I've had that goal several times, but I know that that's not going to happen. I know things are going to come up that are going to derail me. I think that the power of the calendar, like, this is what I'm doing this, and stick to it
Yeah.
as best you can. Do not expect 100%.
Right.
I'm not doing this every single day. If you do this, say 75, 80% of the time, that's great.
Yes. So
I
the
think,
70-30 rule, right?
yeah,
70
yeah,
30.
yep, yeah. If you feel like you can get to 80-20, all the better.
Mhm.
But 70, 75, 25, 30, I think that's great. And I think the same for food.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah. And the thing that I've heard many times is that you can't out exercise a bad diet. And coming on Halloween, like, just, I'm not saying like throw your hands up and just like go nuts, but like, you know what? It's hard to avoid. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow's a new day, and start then.
You know what my contention is that guilt over what you put in your mouth does more harm than what you actually put in your mouth.
Yeah.
Right? Like I honestly believe that, because from my cognitive behavioral training standpoint, the way we think about things actually will do things in your body that are worse than the actual thing that you put in your body. Your thoughts are the most powerful thing that you have.
Yep.
Whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Your thoughts are the most powerful thing that you have, and it's driving everything that goes on in your body. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I just had a piece of chocolate cake and I shouldn't have done that, and you're just all over yourself for that, that's going to do more harm to you than just
It is.
enjoy the piece of cake, for crying out loud, and move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, if you're that concerned about it, then have a smaller piece of cake,
Right.
or don't eat the frosting. Save it for me because I'm happy to eat frosting.
Okay.
Love
Yeah,
frosting.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
all that's a whole other talk
Okay.
too. But like you just have to be kind to yourself through this process,
Exactly.
because it is
Exactly.
very easy to have these negative thoughts and to really like have those negative thoughts get internalized so
Yes.
deeply, and that raises your cortisol levels and all this stuff. And so
Yeah.
everything you're doing is not going to have an impact at all.
Moderation, everything in moderation, including moderation. Right?
Essentially, yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, and having gone through in the last 20 years with like being hot, I miss those days. I was so young then. It was easier. And it's harder as you get older. It is like your body just doesn't do the things that you need to do.
Does not.
And yeah, like I tend to get injured more because I start going, and then like, oh, I can do more, I can do more. Let's push the boundaries, see how much I can lift. Let's see how much I can do of this or of that, or how long I can go. How long is my endurance? How many miles can I run? Blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. And it's uh sometimes I pay the price for that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I pay the price for being like really inspired, going beyond my limit. Like, and then you're out for a couple weeks with, you know,
Whatever. Yeah.
yeah, a pulled neck. I mean, I've hurt myself sleeping before.
Now
Like,
see,
oh,
that's
what did I
talented.
do?
That is
Yeah,
pure talent.
it really, yeah. It's like, wait, I can't even lift my shoulder because my neck's, yeah,
But those of us Gen Xers, we totally understood what you just said, because
yeah,
we're all right there.
yeah, yeah. So, but I think as men, more so than women, correct me if I'm wrong, that men are going to push that envelope with themselves even more.
Yeah, and I think that's a societal message that needs to be explored and possibly changed. And I think across the board too, because there are messages like you can do it all, you can be it all, you can have it all. And to some extent, when you're setting goals, you kind of have to have some of that mentality. But the reality is that I am never going to be an Air Force pilot. I may want to be. I may want to be a grizzly bear trainer at the circus. That is never going to happen. It's just not. And so I think you're right. I think there's something about the messaging that we get in society about who you are as a man that really kind of feeds into that whole mentality about how far can I push myself. Now, in sports in particular, that's where some of that messaging comes from. And we have seen some spectacular performances from athletes who, if they had just said, I'm just going to do what I think I can do and not do any more, that they would not have attained the status that they've attained. And I don't necessarily mean fame. I just mean, strength and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think that we have to use our noggins, right? We have to use our brains and go, okay, what's the risk here? Is this something I really need to do? Like I was telling you, I've had plantar fasciitis in my left heel for most of this year. And for most of this year, I have tried to push through that. And it has not done me any good. Because I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be that girl over here going, I'm in so much pain. And I just don't want to be that girl. So I try to maintain my regular lifestyle, but I'm telling you, it got to a point where I had to sit myself down because I couldn't walk. And so at that point, you're like, okay, is it worth it to continue to push through and to tell yourself you can do anything? No, I needed some time to heal, which by the way, it's better now, but it's because I had to take that time. And could I have pushed through? Absolutely. Would I still be hurting today here in October? Yeah, I probably would have been, and I probably would have been miserable. So I don't know. I think we have to balance that somehow with some common sense. Does that make any sense at all?
It does. It does. And there's, I think the weird thing with men and for men is that, it seems to be more difficult for us to find our identity in this. Like, I think we're looking at those sorts of things as like there's a universal thing. Like back in the 50s, like men wore suits to work unless they were some sort of laborer. All those jobs were like respected, and because every man was providing, and women predominantly stayed at home and played that role. And I'm not saying that was a good thing or a bad thing, but
it was. Yeah.
Right. But and I think the shift has been great for women, but the outcome of that is that I think that was one of the beginnings of men and this struggle of identity. Like, what does it mean to be a man? Well, the women are working, but that was my job. So where does that leave me? And so I think, well, why? I mean, I don't think the argument today, and I'm sure there's exceptions to this, but I think for me, the argument today isn't like women should be working. It's like we can all work together. Like this is all a partnership. It doesn't change who I am as a man, but I think there are some men that it does, and it did, and I think it still does generationally. It does, and so I think what happens with men is, and I think we're seeing this today, and I think COVID kind of brought this to light too, is that men are like, as they feel less of a man because they're not winning the competition, if you will, between women and other groups, then they're a loser. And because they're a loser, they're checking out. So they're more isolated, they're more lonely. They don't have social support because men's friendships are different from women's.
Yes.
They're not necessarily as open. There are one of the things I read by Jeffrey, I think is pronounced it Greif. He wrote this book called Buddy System, and he talked about there's 4 classifications of men's friends. It's must friends, trust friends, rust friends, and just friends. So must friends are like, this is the person you're talking to. So kind of excluding, spouses as your best friend, but your best male friend is someone like that you say, hey, like I'm sick, or my sibling passed away, or something big happened. And that's the person like you must share this with. Like this is your sounding board. You've
Right.
got your trust friends who is similar, but they're just not your go-to. They just haven't moved into that must category. Your rust friends, people that you've known for a long time, and you've been friends with maybe as children or in high school or in college or at some point a long time ago, and you've known them, but you're not like as tight.
Mm-hmm.
There's your just friends, like, oh, hey, like, well, they're in my poker group, or they're in my they're in my cycle class, or they're in my church group, or whatever that may be. So you only maybe see them in that context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I think that, to me, um, like I think everybody decides like, I'm good with my just friends, like I don't need anything else. I think there's some of that that's maybe kind of still stuffing things down a bit. Like I think the social connection, at least for me, and I may be like projecting on other people, and I'm sorry if I'm doing that, but my must friends, like my wife's my best friend, and I have another friend who's my definitely my must friend, and we talk about anything and everything, and which has been great, absolutely fantastic. But I know that if I had my just friends only, like my life would not be as positive or productive or as enriching as it is
Mm-hmm.
today.
Yeah.
So I think not only in the terms of exercise, that's needed. Like that's how he and I started. We were exercise friends. And that was it. And it kind of blossomed from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great you can move through these 4 planes. But uh yeah, I think that people don't have that, or setting themselves up for all kinds of problems, because friendship, like, or getting rid of loneliness. And let me show you these statistics here. Oh,
Yeah. And while
um,
you're looking for that, let me just say that, the 6th F of ULA is friends.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
That's
in terms of
fantastic.
finding that balance and that healthy balance in life, you really do need those friends to be able to
Yeah,
do that. And I love those levels that he talked about.
yeah. He wrote a great book. It's really good. So the CDC reports health risks of social isolation and loneliness are heart disease and stroke, type 2 diabetes, depression and anxiety, addiction, suicide, dementia, and early death.
That
Now,
doesn't sound like a life I want.
yeah, me either. Like none of those sound pleasant.
Yeah.
Like, if that's in the brochure, like I'll pass.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I'm not signing up for that. So,
Yeah.
but if you go back to the healthy people piece, prostate cancer, syphilis, gonorrhea, like this
Hmm.
doesn't get at the main issue for men.
Right.
And so that's the thing that, as a public health professional, that I find highly disappointing. And I'm not shaking my finger at these agencies that put it together, but shake my finger.
I
And
will
but
on
no,
your behalf.
right. But so in the CDC's leading causes of death, right here, I'm going to read you this list. So for men of all ages, 2018 is the most current data I've been able to find. So heart disease is 1,
Hmm.
unintentional injuries is number 3,
Hmm.
um, stroke 5, diabetes 6, Alzheimer's, dementia-ish is 7th, suicide is 8th.
Again, not a life I want to lead.
Right. but if we can impact the social isolation and loneliness piece that men experience, but have a really hard time either admitting, and maybe they aren't, and that's fine. But those that are, like, aren't getting the support that they need, or
Yeah.
they're not able to do that. So, for example, in a study in the UK, it was 94% of men that committed suicide were in therapy. And
Mm.
those men, 82% of them, low 80%, were deemed to be low risk or high or low risk or no risk of suicide.
Oh, wow.
So men are tremendous maskers.
Yeah.
And that's not a great skill.
Right. Right.
And I think so, but there's this wall, and it's a really thick one, because men, stubborn. I'm stubborn, super stubborn.
What? Okay.
Yeah, I know.
We've been
Um,
friends a while. I can say that.
right, yeah. And so, but how do you do that? Like,
Yeah.
how do you help someone who doesn't want to be helped, or doesn't believe they want to be helped? Like,
Mhm.
you can't. And so we're in this spiral.
Right. Well, I will tell you that this is probably someplace that we should camp out on in another video. This is like going to have to be part two
Okay.
because for one thing, we're out of time, but for another, I am really loving what you're saying about this because I believe so deeply in this issue for men and women, but in particular for men, because I do know that to be true. Even though I'm not a man, I have seen it in my own life with men around me that the things that you're saying are 100% true. And that relationships and life in general can be really, really hard when you don't have these things in place. And I think this whole topic deems itself to be separate. So I would love to
Yeah,
invite you to come back and let's talk a little bit more about that, because
you
I
bet.
think
You
that
bet.
could probably be the number one thing that really could impact men's health the most. I mean, we can talk about all this other stuff, but as a natural health practitioner and as somebody who believes in that mind body connection and that cognitive behavioral connection, these things that you're talking about probably impact men's health more than anything else.
Yep.
And I would love to be able to explore that in part two if you're open to that.
Let's
So
do it. I'm ready when you are.
all right, last piece of advice. If you could give men any advice for today until we get to part two, right?
Mhm.
To get started, what would you tell them just as a man? Where are you? What are you telling them? How can you get healthy, find happiness, whatever it is you want to tell them? What's that last piece
Wow.
of advice?
I think it's something I said earlier about the exercise piece, but um I think it's good advice for men and for women too, and for that matter. Just be be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself, be kind to others, be kind to those around you. Don't um I think that the way things get and can get so politicized so quickly, that, like, issues become just so contentious so fast,
Fast,
and they
yeah.
can feel like these attacks on your manhood, your womanhood, your personhood, your identity, like your values, like all these things feel like people are just gunning at you. And I think we we interpret it that way, and we shouldn't. And I think if we make a conscious effort to not interpret these things as an attack, like, wow, you're having a really bad day, like, let's talk about what that looks like. And validate people's feelings. Like, they share with you their feelings, like, validate them. Like, yeah, that sounds like that really sucks. Like, when you do that, like, the walls just start to come down.
Hmm.
And, like, I'm not saying to treat life like therapy,
Right.
right? But I think if we just can talk to each other and listen and just validate where each other what we are. because we have feelings that are brought on by thoughts, and these thoughts may be crazy thoughts. I mean, I'm not saying like certifiably crazy, but I'm saying like they would be just out of nowhere, and being able to just take that and show kindness just can go so far.
Yeah.
I know that I have done things in my past, in my recent past, where I have not done that, and I have tremendous regret. And I'm 58. I'm, like I get Medicare enrollment things almost on a daily basis. Irritates the crap out of me. I'm not 65. Do not send those to me. I'm not signing up for those to do.
Right.
And but my point being, like, I don't want to live my life for regrets. I'm on my downhill slope. I've got a third left of my life. Like, I'm gonna make it count.
Let's make it count.
And,
That's what yeah.
and yeah, and I am not going to do this. And
Yeah.
things I wish I would have done in my 20s and 30s and 40s and early 50s. And I'm not going to keep making these mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm on that other side too. So I totally get that. But I do think this is a conversation worth continuing. So let's talk about that. Let's figure out when we can do that. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that my viewers will probably appreciate that too, because honestly, I do think that from my woman perspective, I think that's probably the number one thing that men probably could be supported with and would have better health outcomes if they could just figure out this friendship. And it's not really even just friendship, it's just the self-isolation piece. And let's figure out how to fix that. And then win the Nobel Peace Prize and, all that stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, that's later. It's fine. So
Anyway.
yeah, love to have the conversation. This is kind of the area that I really wanted to delve in more deeply in my research. I haven't kind of started down that path yet. I'm still learning and absorbing, but yeah, I'm happy to share with you whatever I've got.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Well, Dr. Jeff Hatala, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And as we always close out anything that we do here on this channel, we always say, be grateful, have faith, and go get your ULA life.